Park Ji-soo wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked up at the mountain trail ahead. The autumn leaves were changing colors, painting the forest in shades of orange and red. He had been hiking for 3 hours now, and his legs were starting to feel tired. But he loved these quiet moments alone in nature. As a marine biologist, he spent most of his days in the laboratory or on research boats. These weekend hikes in the mountains of Gangwon Province were his escape from the busy city life. He stopped to drink some water and eat a small snack. The forest was peaceful. Birds sang in the trees above him. A cool breeze carried the smell of pine and earth. Jisoo smiled to himself. Ap, M, Byam, B, Ap, M. This was exactly what he needed. Then the sky exploded with light. Jisoo fell backward, shielding his eyes with his arm. A sound like thunder rolled across the mountains, so loud that it shook the ground beneath his feet. When he looked up again, he saw something impossible. A streak of silver fire was falling from the sky, leaving a trail of smoke behind it. It was not a meteor. It was not a plane. It was something else. Entirely. The object crashed into the forest about 2 kilometers ahead. The impact sent a shockwave through the air that knocked Jisoo off his feet completely. Trees bent and birds scattered in every direction. For a long moment, he just lay there on the ground, staring at the column of smoke rising above the tree line. His heart was beating fast. His hands were shaking. Every reasonable part of his brain told him to run away, to call someone, to do anything, except go toward that crash site. But something stronger pulled at him. Curiosity. Concern. The simple human need to help if someone was hurt. Jisoo got to his feet and started running toward the smoke. The forest grew darker as he went deeper. Broken branches and fallen trees marked the path of whatever had fallen from the sky. The air smelled strange, like burned metal, and something sweet he could not identify. His lungs burned from running, but he did not stop. When he finally reached the crash site, Jisoo stopped and stared. The spacecraft was beautiful, even half destroyed. It was shaped like a crescent moon, with a smooth silver surface that seemed to glow faintly from within. Strange symbols were carved into its hull. Symbols that looked like no human language Jisoo had ever seen. The craft had carved a long trench through the earth, destroying everything in its path. Now it lay tilted against a large boulder, its front section cracked open and leaking a glowing blue liquid. Jisoo approached slowly. His legs felt weak. His mind could not fully accept what his eyes were seeing. A spacecraft. An actual spacecraft from somewhere else. This could not be real. But it was. He could feel the heat coming from the damaged hull. He could hear the soft hissing of escaping gases. Then he heard something else. A weak sound. Almost like a cry for help. Jisoo moved around the side of the craft and found what looked like an emergency door. It was hanging open, damaged by the crash. Through the opening, he could see a small interior space filled with strange equipment and soft lighting. And lying on the floor, half covered by debris, was a person. No, not a person. Something else. She looked human at first glance. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face with recognizable features, but her skin was pale violet, like the color of lavender flowers. Her hair was long and silver, shining with an inner light that seemed to move like liquid. She was wearing some kind of uniform, white and elegant, now torn and stained with silver blood. Silver blood. Jisoo's mind struggled to process this. Her blood was silver. He should have been afraid. He should have run. But when he looked at her face, all he saw was someone in pain. Someone who needed help. It did not matter that she was not human. She was hurt, and she might die if he did nothing. Jisoo climbed into the spacecraft carefully. The interior was hot and filled with smoke, but he pushed forward. When he reached her, he checked for breathing first, just like he had learned in his first aid training. She was breathing, but barely. Her pulse was weak and strange, beating in a rhythm he did not recognize. He had to get her out of here. The spacecraft was making dangerous sounds, like it might explode at any moment. Jisoo lifted her as gently as he could. She was lighter than he expected, and she made a small sound of pain as he moved her. He whispered soft words of comfort, even though he knew she probably could not understand him. Getting out of the spacecraft was difficult. The door was small, but finally, he managed to carry her away from the wreckage and lay her down on a patch of soft grass. A moment later, part of the spacecraft collapsed with a loud crash. If he had waited any longer, they both would have been trapped inside. Jisoo looked down at the alien woman in his arms. Her eyes were closed, and her violet skin had become pale. The silver blood was still flowing from a wound on her side. He needed to treat that wound quickly. His cabin was about 30 minutes away. It was a small place he rented for his weekend trips. Simple, but clean. It had basic medical supplies. It was not much, but it was better than leaving her here in the forest. Jisoo took off his jacket and pressed it against her wound to slow the bleeding. Then, very carefully, he lifted her again and began the long walk back to his cabin. The sun was setting by the time he arrived. His arms ached from carrying her, and his legs felt like they might give out at any moment. But he had made it. He laid her on his bed and immediately went to get his first aid kit. He did not know if human medicine would work on an alien body. He did not know if the bandages would help, or if the antiseptic would hurt her. But he had to try something. So he cleaned her wound as gently as he could, wrapped it with clean bandages, and covered her with a warm blanket. Then he sat down in the chair beside the bed and watched her breathe. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why had she crashed on Earth? Jisoo had so many questions, but no answers. All he could do was wait and hope that she would wake up. Outside, the night grew dark and cold. But inside the small cabin, a fire crackled in the fireplace, and a marine biologist from Korea kept watch over a stranger from the stars. He did not know it yet, but his life had just changed forever. Nothing would ever be the same again. Princess Yuna, of the Velen Empire, had dreamed of darkness. Cold, endless darkness that pressed against her from all sides. In the dream, she was falling through space, watching her ship break apart around her. Warning alarms screamed in her ears. Fire filled her vision. And then, nothing. Just the darkness and the cold. But now something was different. She felt warmth. Soft warmth surrounding her body, like a gentle embrace. There was a weight on top of her. Something heavy, but comforting. And there were smells. Strange smells she did not recognize. Burning wood, earth, something cooking. Her eyes opened slowly. At first, everything was blurry. She blinked several times, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. A ceiling made of wood. Walls made of wood. Everything seemed to be made of wood. This was not her ship. This was not any place she recognized. Yuna tried to sit up, but pain shot through her side, and she fell back with a gasp. The wound. She remembered the explosion during the crash, the piece of metal that had cut through her uniform. She reached down and felt bandages wrapped around her body. Someone had treated her injury. Someone had saved her. But who? Where was she? She turned her head slowly, looking around the small room. There was a fire burning in some kind of stone structure against the wall. Simple furniture surrounded her. A table, some chairs, shelves filled with books and small objects. Everything looked primitive, but clean and well cared for. Then she saw him. A figure was sitting in a chair near the fire, reading something in his hands. He had not noticed that she was awake yet. Yuna studied him carefully, trying to understand what kind of creature he was. He looked almost Valen. Same basic shape. Same number of limbs. A face with 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. But his skin, was different. It was a warm brown color, nothing like the violet shades of her people. His hair was black and cut short. He was wearing simple clothes, nothing like the uniforms of any species she knew. Then the creature looked up, and their eyes met. Yuna froze. Every muscle in her body locked tight. Her heart stopped beating for one terrible moment. Her mind filled with images from the ancient texts, the warnings passed down through 10,000 years of Velen history. She knew what this creature was. She knew it, with absolute certainty. Human. She was looking at a human. The terror that filled her was unlike anything she had ever felt. Yuna had faced pirates in the outer regions. She had survived assassination attempts. She had stood before the Imperial Council and argued for her beliefs without fear. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Nothing could prepare any Velen for the sight of a living, breathing human. In the old stories, humans were called the Endless Hunters. They were the nightmare of the ancient galaxy, a species so violent and so persistent that entire civilizations had fallen before them. The texts described them as unstoppable predators who never tired, never forgot, and never showed mercy. They could survive injuries that would kill any other species. They could adapt to any environment. They would chase their prey across years, across generations, across the entire galaxy if necessary. And then, 10,000 years ago, they had vanished. No one knew why or how. They simply disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and terrified memories. The Velen Empire had grown strong in their absence. The galaxy had known peace. And humans had become legends, monsters from old stories used to frighten children. But legends did not sit in chairs reading books. Legends did not have warm brown eyes that crinkled slightly when they smiled. The human was smiling at her. He said something in a language she did not understand. His voice was soft and gentle, nothing like the roars of rage described in the ancient texts. He set down his book and stood up slowly, moving toward her with careful steps. Yuna wanted to run. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to escape, to get away from this creature, before it was too late. But she could not move. The wound in her side held her in place, and the fear held her even tighter. The human stopped at a safe distance. He pointed to himself and said a word. Jisoo. Then he pointed to her, with a questioning look. Was he asking for her name? The most dangerous predator in galactic history was asking for her name? Yuna could not speak. Her throat was too tight with fear. The human seemed to understand. He nodded slowly and backed away, giving her space. He walked to the fire and picked up a bowl filled with something that steamed. Then he brought it to her and set it on the small table beside the bed. He said more words she could not understand. But he made eating gestures with his hands, and he smiled again. That strange, gentle smile that made no sense at all. He was offering her food. Yuna stared at the bowl. It contained some kind of liquid, with vegetables floating in it. The smell was unfamiliar, but not unpleasant. She looked back at the human, searching his face for any sign of danger or deception. She found nothing. Just patience and kindness. This could not be real. Humans did not show kindness. Humans were monsters. Everyone knew this. The entire galaxy knew this. But the monster was backing away now, returning to his chair by the fire. He picked up his book again and began to read, giving her privacy to eat if she wanted. Yuna lay there for a long time, watching him. Her mind was spinning with confusion. Nothing about this situation matched what she had been taught. Nothing made sense. Eventually, hunger won over fear. She reached for the bowl with trembling hands and brought it to her lips. The soup was warm and simple, but it was the most confusing meal she had ever eaten. Every swallow felt like a question without an answer. She was the crown princess of the Velen Empire, trained from birth to lead and to fight. She had never felt so lost in her entire life. When she finished the soup, She looked at the human again. He had fallen asleep in his chair, his book resting on his chest. His face was peaceful and unguarded. He did not look like a monster. He looked like someone who had stayed awake for a long time, watching over a stranger he had saved from a crashed ship. Why? Why would he do this? What did he want from her? Yuna had no answers. She only had questions and a growing feeling that everything she knew about humans might be wrong. She lay back against the soft pillow and stared at the wooden ceiling. Her body needed rest to heal, but her mind would not stop spinning. Somewhere outside this small wooden building, her people were probably searching for her. Her ship would have sent an emergency signal before it crashed. Help would come soon. And when it did, she would have to decide what to do about the human who had saved her life. For now, all she could do was watch and wait and try to understand the impossible creature sleeping peacefully by the fire. 5 days passed in the small wooden cabin. 5 days of healing, of watching, of slowly learning to exist in the same space as a creature from legend. Jisoo had fallen into a simple routine. He woke early each morning, made breakfast for both of them, checked Yuna's bandages, and then spent the day doing small tasks around the cabin. He read books. He cooked meals. He went outside to gather firewood, or to feed the wild birds that came to his window. And through it all, he talked to her in his soft, musical language, even though she could not understand a single word. Yuna watched everything he did with careful attention. She was still afraid, but the sharp terror of the first night had faded into something more like confusion. Every hour that passed without violence made her doubt the old stories a little more. She observed how he treated the fire, adding wood gently and watching the flames with a peaceful expression. She noticed how he prepared food, tasting it himself before offering it to her, making sure it was not too hot. She saw how he opened the window each morning to scatter seeds for the birds, smiling when they came to eat. These were not the actions of a monster. On the third day, the small device in Yuna's ear finally finished analyzing his language. It was a translation implant, standard equipment for all Valen diplomats and royalty. The device needed time to learn a new language from scratch, especially one it had never encountered before. But now, finally, it was ready. When Jisoo spoke to her that morning, she understood. "Good morning," he said, carrying a tray of food. "How are you feeling today? Your wound looks much better. The swelling has gone down." Yuna stared at him. The words made sense now. Simple words. Kind words. Jisoo noticed her expression and stopped. "What's wrong? Are you in pain?" She shook her head slowly. "I can understand you now." His eyes went wide with surprise. Then his face broke into that gentle smile she was starting to recognize. "You can? That's wonderful. How? Is it some kind of technology?" Yuna touched her ear. "Translation implant. It needed time to learn your language." "That's amazing." Jisoo set down the tray and sat in his usual chair, leaning forward with obvious excitement. "I have so many questions. Where are you from? What happened to your ship? Are there others looking for you?" But Yuna had questions of her own. Questions that had been burning inside her for days. She pushed herself up to a sitting position, ignoring the dull pain in her side. "Why?" she asked. Jisoo blinked. "Why what? Why did you save me? Why are you taking care of me? Why haven't you?" She hesitated, struggling to find the right words. "Why haven't you killed me? Why haven't? Why haven't you killed me?" The silence that followed was heavy. Jisoo's smile faded into confusion, then something that looked like hurt. "Why would I kill you?" he asked quietly. "Because that is what humans do." The words hung in the air between them. Jisoo stared at her for a long moment, his expression shifting through several emotions she could not read. Finally, he let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but sad. "Is that what you think of us?" Of humans? It is what everyone thinks. It is what our history teaches. Yuna watched his face carefully. The endless hunters. The deathless walkers. Your species conquered half the galaxy through violence and blood. You hunted other races to extinction. You waged war without mercy for thousands of years. The entire galaxy feared you before you disappeared. Jisoo was quiet for a long time. He looked down at his hands, then out the window, then back at her. When he spoke, his voice was gentle, but confused. I don't know what history you're talking about. I'm a marine biologist. I study fish and ocean ecosystems. I've never conquered anything. I've never even been in a real fight. He paused. Yuna did not understand. But the ancient records, the wars, the destruction. I don't know about any of that, Jisoo said honestly. But I can tell you about the humans I know. We've never left our planet. We haven't even sent people to Mars yet. We argue about politics and watch too much television and worry about paying our bills. We're not conquerors. We're just people, trying to live our lives. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the forest beyond. The morning light caught his face, highlighting the thoughtful expression in his eyes. Yes, humans can be violent, he admitted. We have wars. We hurt each other. That's true. But we're also capable of kindness. We create art and music. We fall in love. We take care of strangers who crash in our forests. He turned back to face her. I saved you because you needed help. That's all. I didn't think about it. I just did it because it was the right thing to do. Yuna felt something shift inside her chest. A wall she had been holding up for days began to crack. How can I know you're telling the truth? Jisoo smiled sadly. I don't know how to prove it. All I can do is show you who I am through my actions. He gestured around the cabin. I have no weapons here. I've never tried to hurt you or threaten you. I've given you food and medicine, and a warm bed. What more can I do? She had no answer for that. Over the next 2 days, Yuna asked him hundreds of questions. She learned about Earth, a small blue planet that had never known contact with other civilizations. She learned about human history, full of both darkness and light. She learned about Jisoo's life, his work, his family, his dreams, and slowly, piece by piece, she began to build a new picture of humanity. Not the monsters from her history books, but something more complex. A species capable of terrible things, yes, but also capable of beautiful ones, violent and gentle, cruel and kind. All of it mixed together in ways that made no simple sense. On the 6th night, Yuna made a decision. My name is Yuna, she said quietly as Jisoo prepared dinner. I am the crown princess of the Velan Empire. My ship was damaged during a diplomatic mission, and I crashed here by accident. Jisoo nearly dropped the pot he was holding. Princess? Like, actual royalty? Yes. She met his eyes. And I owe you my life. When my people come for me, I will make sure you are protected. You have my word. Jisoo smiled, that warm and genuine smile she had come to recognize. I didn't save you for a reward. But thank you. That means a lot. For the first time since waking up in this strange wooden cabin, Yuna smiled back. Outside, unknown to both of them, 3 warships were entering Earth's atmosphere. The rescue team had finally arrived, and everything was about to become much more complicated. The morning of the 7th day began like all the others. Jisoo woke early and made breakfast while Yuna rested in bed. Her wound had healed remarkably fast, far faster than any human injury would have. She could walk now, though she still moved carefully. They ate together at the small table, talking about small things. Jisoo was teaching her about Korean food, explaining the different vegetables in the soup and how his mother used to make it when he was young. Yuna listened with genuine interest, asking questions about Earth customs and family traditions. It felt almost normal, almost peaceful. Then the sky turned dark. Jisoo looked up at the window and froze. 3 massive shadows were descending through the clouds, blocking out the morning sun. They were shaped like teardrops, smooth and silver, with lights running along their edges. Each one was larger than any building Jisoo had ever seen. "What is that?" he whispered. Yuna stood up slowly, her violet eyes fixed on the sky. Her expression had changed from relaxed to serious in an instant. "My people. They found me. I'm have describe. I'm have describe. Final ready 5. I'm hard to doing. My people. They found me." The ships landed in the forest clearing near the cabin, crushing trees beneath their massive weight. The sound was deafening, a low rumble that shook the walls and made dishes fall from shelves. Jisoo grabbed the table to keep his balance, watching through the window as ramps extended from the ships and figures began marching out. They were Velan soldiers. Dozens of them. They wore white armor that gleamed in the morning light, and they carried weapons that Jisoo could not identify. They moved with military precision, spreading out in formation around the cabin. "Stay here," Yuna said firmly. "Stay inside, and don't make any sudden movements. Let me handle this." She walked to the door before Jisoo could respond. He watched through the window as she stepped outside, her posture straightening into something regal and commanding. Even in her torn uniform, even with bandages still wrapped around her body, she looked like royalty. The soldiers immediately dropped to one knee when they saw her. All except one. He was taller than the others, with broad shoulders and a hard face. His armor was decorated with golden symbols that marked him as a commander. He walked toward Yuna with long, confident strides, and when he reached her, he did not bow. "Princess," he said, and even from inside the cabin, Jisoo could hear the relief in his voice. "We thought we had lost you. We thought we had lost you." "Commander Taeho," Yuna replied formally. "Thank you for coming. As you can see, I am alive and recovering well." The commander's eyes swept over her injured body, then moved to the cabin behind her. His expression darkened. "What is this place? Where have you been staying?" One came bore. A local inhabitant found me after the crash. He has been caring for my injuries." Taeho's jaw tightened. "What kind of inhabitant?" Before Yuna could answer, Jisoo made a decision that would change everything. He could not hide inside while Yuna faced whatever was happening alone. It was not right. She had put herself in danger to protect him. He would do the same for her. He opened the door and stepped outside. The reaction was immediate. Every soldier raised their weapons, pointing directly at him. Jisoo raised his hands slowly, showing he was unarmed. But the fear in the soldiers' faces was unmistakable. They were terrified of him. Taeho stared at Jisoo with wide eyes. Then his face twisted with something between rage and horror. "Human," he whispered. "A living human." He drew his weapon in one smooth motion and aimed it at Jisoo's chest. "Princess, step away from the creature. Step away now." Yuna moved instead to stand between Taeho and Jisoo, blocking the shot. "Put down your weapon, Commander." Telder, "You don't understand," Taeho said, his voice shaking. "The histories, the records, that thing is dangerous beyond measure. It could kill all of us before we even saw it move. This man saved my life." Yuna's voice was steady and commanding. "He found me in the wreckage of my ship. He carried me to safety. He treated my wounds with his own hands. For 7 days, he has given me food, shelter, and kindness. Does that sound like a monster to you?" Taeho's weapon did not waver. The old humans were masters of deception. They would gain trust and then strike. This is obviously a trap. It is not a trap. He didn't even know what I was when he saved me. He had never seen an alien before. Yuna took a step toward Taeho, her eyes burning with intensity. "The old stories may be true, But this man is not those stories. He is something different. Something the galaxy has not seen before. The soldiers looked uncertain. They kept their weapons raised, but their eyes moved between their princess and their commander, waiting to see what would happen. Teho's voice dropped to something colder. I am your betrothed, Yuna. It is my duty to protect you, and as commander of this rescue mission, I have the authority to eliminate any threat. Step aside. No. The word echoed across the clearing. Several soldiers flinched at the steel in their princess's voice. I invoke the right of witness, Yuna continued. This human, Park Jisoo, is under my personal protection. Any harm done to him will be treated as harm done to me. Any attack against him will be an attack against the crown. Teho's face went pale. The right of witness was an ancient law, one of the oldest in the empire. It could not be broken without extreme consequences. To violate it would be to challenge the authority of the royal family itself. You would protect a human? Teho asked in disbelief. You would risk your position? Your reputation? Everything? For this creature? He protected me when he had no reason to. He showed me kindness when he could have shown fear or cruelty. Yes, I will protect him. Yuna's voice softened slightly. The humans of legend may have been monsters, Teho, but this human is not. I have watched him. I have spoken with him, and I believe that everything we thought we knew about this species might be wrong. The silence stretched long and heavy. Finally, Teho lowered his weapon. His face was still twisted with anger, but he had no choice. The right of witness was sacred. Very well, he said through clenched teeth. The human lives. For now. But this matter will be decided by higher authorities. Your father will hear of this. I expect he will. Yuna turned to look at Jisoo, who had stood perfectly still throughout the entire confrontation. Are you all right? Are you all right? You conduce. Jisoo slowly lowered his hands. He had understood nothing of what had just been said, but he understood the situation well enough. He had been seconds away from death, and Yuna had saved him. Is everything okay? He asked in Korean. Yuna almost smiled. Not yet, but it will be. She switched to his language, speaking slowly and carefully. You must come with us now. To my world. I will keep you safe. I promise. Jisoo looked at the massive ships, the armed soldiers, the impossible situation he had found himself in. A week ago, he had been a simple marine biologist, taking a weekend hike. Now he was about to travel to another planet. He took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, he said. I trust you. Not. Not. And somehow, despite everything, he meant it. The journey to Vela Prime would take 12 days through what Yuna called fold space. Jisoo did not understand the science behind it, but he understood that they were traveling faster than light, crossing distances that should have taken thousands of years in just under 2 weeks. He spent most of his time alone. The crew of the flagship avoided him like he carried a deadly disease. When he walked through the corridors, soldiers pressed themselves against the walls, their hands moving toward their weapons. When he entered the dining hall, conversation stopped and people left. Even the cleaning staff refused to enter his quarters, leaving supplies outside his door instead. Jisoo tried not to let it bother him. He understood, in a way. To these people, he was a living nightmare. The fact that he was actually harmless did not change thousands of years of fear and legend. Yuna visited him when she could, but her duties as princess kept her busy. She had to report to her father through long-distance communication. She had to manage the political situation that her rescue had created. She had to deal with Commander Teho, who watched Jisoo with hatred in his eyes every time they crossed paths. So Jisoo spent his days alone in his small room, looking out the window at the stars streaking past. He thought about his life on Earth, his work, his family. His sister, Unji, would be worried sick by now. He had no way to contact her, no way to tell her he was alive. He wondered if he would ever see her again. On the 5th day, someone knocked on his door. Jisoo opened it and found a young Valan woman standing in the corridor. She was small and delicate, with pale blue skin and dark violet hair. She wore simple clothes, not the uniform of a soldier, and unlike everyone else on the ship, she did not look afraid. She looked curious. "Hello," she said carefully in his language. Her accent was strange, but the words were clear. "I am Hana. I serve Princess Yuna. She asked me to check on you. May I come in?" Jisoo stepped aside to let her enter. It was the first friendly face he had seen in days. Hana looked around his small room with interest. Her eyes lingered on the window, where the stars continued their endless dance. Then, she turned back to him with a nervous smile. "I have been studying your language," she admitted. "The translation systems make it easier, but I wanted to learn the proper words. I hope I am speaking correctly." "Your Korean is very good," Jisoo said honestly. "Much better than my Valan, which is nothing." Hana laughed, a soft and musical sound. "Valen is difficult, many sounds that humans cannot make." She paused, tilting her head. "May I ask you questions? I am curious about your species." Jisoo nodded. "Of course, ask anything you want." She sat down on the small chair near his bed, folding her hands in her lap. Her curiosity seemed to overcome whatever fear she might have felt. "Is it true," she began slowly, "that humans can survive wounds that would kill any other species?" Jisoo thought about this. "I don't know about other species, but humans are pretty tough. I guess. We can lose a lot of blood and still survive. We can break bones, and they heal. We can get sick and recover." He showed her the old scar on his arm. "I got this when I was 8 years old. Fell off my bicycle and cut myself on a piece of glass. It healed in a few weeks." Hana touched the scar with trembling fingers. Her skin was cool against his. "In the stories, they say, humans cannot be stopped. That you will chase your prey across years, across generations, never getting tired, never giving up. Is this true?" Jisoo laughed softly. "Well, we did invent marathon running. That's a race where humans run for over 40 kilometers without stopping. And we're definitely stubborn. Once we decide to do something, we usually don't give up easily." Hana stared at him with wide eyes. 40 kilometers? Without stopping? Some people run even farther. There are races that last for days. The look on Hana's face was almost comical. She seemed to be processing this information and finding it difficult to believe. "The stories say, this is why humans were so dangerous. Other species would fight, lose, and retreat. But humans would keep coming. Forever. Until they won. I mean, I guess that's true in some ways." Jisoo scratched his head, feeling awkward. "Humans are persistent. We don't give up easily. But we use that persistence for good things too. Scientists who spend decades searching for cures. Artists who practice for years to master their craft. Parents who work hard their whole lives to give their children better futures." Hana was quiet for a moment, thinking about his words. Then she asked another question. "Why do you think the ancient humans became so violent? The ones who conquered the galaxy?" Jisoo shook his head. "I don't know. I didn't even know they existed until a few days ago. But if I had to guess..." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Humans become dangerous when we're afraid. When we feel threatened. When we think we have to fight to survive. If those ancient humans left Earth and found themselves surrounded by alien species, maybe they were scared. Maybe they attacked because they thought they had to. But you are not scared of us," Hana observed. Jisoo smiled. "I was scared at first. Anyone would be. But Yuna was kind to me. She explained things. She protected me. It's hard to be afraid of someone who treats you with kindness." Hana nodded slowly. Something in her expression had changed. The last traces of fear had faded from her eyes, replaced by something warmer. "I think I understand now," she said softly. "Why the princess protects you. You are not what we expected. Is that good or bad?" "Good." She stood up and gave him a small bow. "I will come again, if you allow it. I have many more questions." "I'd like that," Jisoo said honestly. "It gets lonely in here." Hana smiled and left the room. For the first time since boarding the ship, Jisoo felt a small spark of hope. Over the remaining days of the journey, Hana visited him often. She brought him books, translated into Korean. She taught him simple, Velen phrases. She told him stories about her homeworld and her life serving the princess. And slowly, word began to spread through the ship. The human was not violent. The human was not dangerous. The human was just a person, confused and alone, far from everything he knew. It did not change everything. The soldiers still watched him with suspicious eyes. Commander Taeho still looked at him with hatred. But a few crew members started nodding to him in the corridors. One even said hello in broken Korean. It was not much. But it was a beginning. On the 12th day, the ship dropped out of fold space above Vela Prime. Jisoo stood at the window, staring at the planet below. It was beautiful, blue and green and silver, with rings of crystal ice circling its equator. "This is my home," Yuna said, appearing beside him. "What do you think?" Jisoo took a deep breath. "It's beautiful and terrifying." Yuna nodded. "I understand. But you will not face this alone. I promise to protect you, and I will." She took his hand, her violet fingers intertwining with his brown ones. Together, they watched as the ship began its descent toward the crystal cities of Vela Prime. Whatever waited below, they would face it together. The imperial palace of Vela Prime was unlike anything Jisoo had ever imagined. It stretched across 3 mountain peaks, a massive structure of crystal and light that seemed to grow from the mountains themselves. Towers reached toward the sky like frozen flames. Bridges of transparent glass connected buildings that floated on nothing but air. Gardens filled with plants that glowed with inner light surrounded everything. Jisoo walked through the palace gates in chains. They were not metal chains. They were loops of solid light that wrapped around his wrists and connected to a guard's belt. The energy hummed against his skin. Warm, but not painful. It was a symbol, he understood. A statement that he was a prisoner, not a guest. Yuna walked beside him, her face calm but her eyes worried. She had argued against the chains, but she had lost. The Imperial Council had insisted. A human walking freely through the palace was too dangerous, too frightening for the citizens who would see him pass. Thousands of Velans lined the corridors to watch. Some looked curious. Some looked terrified. Many simply stared with expressions Jisoo could not read. He kept his head up and walked steadily, refusing to show fear, even though his heart was pounding in his chest. Commander Taeho walked behind them, a small smile on his face. He was enjoying this. Jisoo realized. The humiliation, the chains, the spectacle of a human being paraded through the palace like a captured animal. They climbed a grand staircase that seemed to go on forever. The crystal steps rang with each footstep, creating an echo that filled the vast space. Finally, they reached a pair of doors so large that Jisoo had to crane his neck to see the top. The doors opened, and they entered the throne room. It was enormous. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually drifted through the upper reaches. The walls were covered in murals depicting Velen history, and at the far end, seated on a throne of pure crystal, was Emperor Do-hun. He was older than Jisoo had expected. His violet skin had faded to a pale lavender, and his silver hair was thin and white. But his eyes were sharp and bright, filled with intelligence and power. This was a man who had ruled an empire for over 2 centuries. Jisoo was led to the center of the room and forced to his knees. The light chains held him in place. He looked up at the emperor, refusing to lower his eyes. Emperor Dohun studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. So, the monsters are real. After all, Jisu's translation implant, a gift from Hana, converted the words into Korean. He understood, but he did not respond immediately. He was waiting, watching, trying to understand this man who held his life in his hands. Father. Yuna stepped forward. This man is not a monster. He saved my life. He showed me kindness when he had no reason to do so. The Emperor raised a hand, silencing her. His eyes never left Jisu. I have read the reports. I have seen the recordings from the ship. I know what happened. He leaned forward slightly. But I want to hear it from him. Tell me, human. What are you? Jisu took a deep breath. I am a marine biologist from Korea. I study fish. I am not a monster. A murmur rippled through the crowd of officials and nobles who filled the sides of the room. The Emperor's expression did not change. Your species hunted the Karveth to extinction. Jisu shook his head. I don't know what that is. You waged war across 17 star systems. Sir, my people have never even sent humans to Mars. That's a planet in our own solar system. More murmurs. The Emperor glanced at his advisors, who were whispering among themselves. You claim ignorance, Dohun said slowly. But the ancient records are clear. Humans were the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known. They spread across the stars like a plague, destroying everything in their path. I believe those records, Jisu replied carefully. Princess Yuna told me about them. But I cannot speak for humans who lived 10,000 years ago. I can only speak for myself and the people I know. And what would you tell me about them? Jisu thought about his mother, who had worked 2 jobs to send him to university. His sister, who called him every week just to hear his voice. His colleagues at the research center, who spent their lives trying to protect the oceans. The old fisherman, who had taught him to love the sea. We are complicated, he said finally. We can be cruel. We fight wars. We hurt each other. That is true. And I will not pretend otherwise. He paused. But we also love. We create. We dream. We spend our lives searching for meaning and connection. We take care of strangers who crash in our forests. He looked directly at the Emperor. I found your daughter dying in a broken ship. I did not know what she was. I did not know if she was dangerous. But she was hurt. And she needed help. So I helped her. That is who I am. That is who many humans are. The throne room was silent. Every eye was fixed on the small human kneeling in chains before the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. Emperor Dohun leaned back in his throne. His expression was unreadable. Either you are the most convincing liar in the galaxy, he said quietly, or we have made a terrible mistake in our understanding of your species. Let me prove which it is. Yuna stepped forward again, her voice strong. Give him a trial. A proper trial under imperial law. Test him. Question him. Examine every part of his body and mind. If he is lying, the truth will be discovered. If he is honest, then perhaps we need to reconsider everything we thought we knew about humans. The Emperor looked at his daughter. Something passed between them. A silent communication that Jisu could not read. You would stake your reputation on this creature? Dohun asked. I would stake my life on him. Yuna's voice did not waver. He saved me. Now let me save him. Another long silence. The Emperor looked at his advisors, then at Commander Taeho, who was clearly unhappy with this development. Finally, he looked back at Jisu. Very well. The human will be given a trial. 30 days of examination and questioning. Every scanner, every test, every method of investigation will be used. At the end, we will know the truth. He raised his hand, and the light chains fell away from Jisu's wrists. Until then, the human is in the custody of Princess Yuna. He will be treated as a guest, not a prisoner. But he will be watched at all times. The Emperor's eyes hardened, and if he shows any sign of the violence his ancestors were known for, he will be destroyed without hesitation. Jisoo rubbed his wrists where the chains had been. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will prove that your trust is not misplaced." The Emperor did not respond. He simply waved his hand, dismissing them from his presence. As they left the throne room, Yuna walked close to Jisoo. "You did well," she whispered. "My father is not easily impressed. But I saw something in his eyes. Something like curiosity." "And Commander Taeho?" Yuna glanced back at the commander, who was watching them with undisguised hatred. "Taeho will be a problem. But we will deal with that when the time comes." Jisoo nodded. 30 days. He had 30 days to prove that not all humans were monsters. It would have to be enough. The trial lasted exactly 30 days. Every morning, Jisoo was taken to the Imperial Science Center, where teams of Velan researchers examined every part of his body and mind. They scanned his brain to check for deception. They tested his blood for signs of genetic engineering or biological weapons. They measured his strength, his speed, his reflexes. They asked him thousands of questions about Earth, about humanity, about his own life and beliefs. Every evening, he returned to his quarters, exhausted but hopeful. The results were surprising to everyone, except Jisoo himself. His body was remarkably ordinary by Velan standards. His muscles were not especially strong. His senses were not particularly sharp. His reflexes were actually slower than the average Velan. He was not the unstoppable predator the ancient records described, but other results were more interesting. His endurance was extraordinary. When they tested how long he could walk without rest, he continued for 18 hours before they stopped the test out of concern for his health. When they measured his pain tolerance, they found he could endure injuries that would incapacitate most species while still functioning. And his brain showed patterns they had never seen before. A capacity for long-term planning that spanned years, even decades. An ability to form emotional connections with almost any creature he encountered. A persistence, a stubbornness that showed in every psychological profile. He was not a monster, but he was undeniably different. The true breakthrough came on the 23rd day, when researchers finally cracked the genetic mystery. The humans of ancient legend, the endless hunters who had terrorized the galaxy, had been a splinter group. Thousands of years before their rampage, a small population of humans had left Earth and ventured into space. Cut off from their home world, surrounded by alien species they did not understand, they had evolved, or perhaps changed themselves deliberately. They had become harder, crueler, more focused on survival, at any cost. But they had not been all of humanity. They had been a branch that broke away and eventually destroyed itself in civil war. The humans of Earth, the ones like Jisoo, were the original stock, the baseline from which those ancient warriors had diverged. They had the same potential for persistence, the same endurance, the same ability to adapt. But they had something else too. Something the endless hunters had lost along the way. Hope, kindness, the capacity for gentleness even in a harsh universe. On the 30th day, Emperor Dohun made his declaration before the assembled imperial court. "The evidence is clear," he announced, his voice carrying across the great hall. "The human, known as Park Jisoo, is not a threat to our empire. He is not a descendant of the endless hunters in any meaningful way. He is a representative of a species we had thought extinct. A species that shares blood with our ancient enemies, but did not share their fate." He paused, letting his words sink in. Earth and its humans will be welcomed back into the galactic community. Not as monsters to be feared, but as long-lost neighbors to be known. Diplomatic contact will be established. Cultural exchange will begin. A new chapter in galactic history starts today. The crowd erupted in chaos. Some cheered, some protested. Many simply stared in shock. But before the Emperor could continue, a voice cut through the noise. "I challenge the human to a duel of honor." Commander Tejo stepped forward from the crowd. His face was twisted with rage. "This is wrong," he shouted. "This creature is dangerous. No matter what the tests say, the ancient records cannot be ignored. I invoke my right as a commander of the Imperial fleet to challenge this human to single combat. Let his true nature be revealed when his life is at stake." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The duel of honor was another ancient tradition, one that could not be easily refused. Yuna turned to Jisoo with fear in her eyes. "You don't have to accept. There may be another way." But Jisoo was looking at Tejo. He thought about everything that had happened. The crash, the rescue, the journey, the trial. He thought about what it would mean for humanity if he refused, if he showed fear in front of the entire Valan Empire. "I accept," he said quietly. The duel took place that same afternoon in the palace arena. Thousands of spectators filled the stands, watching as the human and the Velen commander faced each other across the white stone floor. Tejo held a gleaming energy blade, a weapon he had trained with his entire life. Jisoo held a similar blade, which he had never touched before today. The mismatch was obvious to everyone. The signal was given. The duel began. It was not a fight. It was a beating. Tejo was faster, stronger, and infinitely more skilled. His blade moved like lightning, striking Jisoo again and again. Cuts opened on Jisoo's arms, his chest, his face. Blood splattered the white stone floor. But Jisoo kept getting up. Every time he fell, he rose again. Every time Tejo knocked him down, he climbed back to his feet. His movements were clumsy and desperate. He could not land a single blow on the commander, but he would not stay down. The crowd grew quiet. They had expected a quick execution. Instead, they were watching something else entirely. After the seventh fall, Tejo stood over Jisoo with his blade raised for the killing blow. "Why won't you stay down?" Tejo stood. "Why won't you stay down?" he demanded. "You cannot win. You know you cannot win. Why do you keep rising?" Jisoo looked up at him through blood-covered eyes. Then, slowly, he turned his head to look at the royal box where Yuna was sitting. She was gripping the railing so hard her knuckles had turned white. Tears were streaming down her violet cheeks. "Because she's watching," Jisoo said quietly. The words echoed across the silent arena. Tejo stared at him. Something shifted in the commander's expression. His arm trembled. Then, slowly, he lowered his blade. "The duel is over," he said hoarsely. "The human has proven his courage. I will not kill a man who fights not for victory but for honor." He turned and walked away, disappearing through the arena gates. Jisoo collapsed on the stone floor, finally allowing himself to feel the pain of his wounds. But he was smiling. 3 months later, the first human ambassador arrived on Vela Prime. Her name was Park Yoonji. She was 25 years old, recently graduated from diplomatic school, and had absolutely no idea why every alien she met looked at her with a mixture of fear and fascination. When she learned the full story, when she understood what her brother had done and what it meant for humanity, she cried for an hour. Then she dried her tears, straightened her shoulders, and got to work building a bridge between two worlds. Jisoo recovered from his wounds under Yuna's careful attention. The scars healed slowly, as human scars always do, leaving permanent marks on his skin. He did not mind. They reminded him of what he had survived. On a quiet evening, 3 months after his duel, he walked with Yuna through the palace gardens. The crystal flowers glowed around them, and the stars of a distant galaxy filled the sky above. "What will you do now?" Yuna asked softly. Jisoo thought about the question. He could return to Earth, to his old life of laboratories and research boats. He could forget this impossible adventure had ever happened. But when he looked at Yuna, at her violet skin glowing in the starlight, at her silver hair moving in the gentle breeze, he knew he did not want to forget anything. "I think I'll stay," he said. "If you'll have me." Yuna smiled, the first truly joyful smile he had ever seen on her face. She took his hand, her violet fingers intertwining with his brown ones, just as they had on the ship. Behind them, the crystal palace shimmered in the darkness. Around them, a galaxy full of wonders waited to be explored. And before them, a future neither of them could have imagined stretched out like an endless sky full of stars. It had started with a crash and a rescue, a princess and a fisherman, fear and kindness. It had grown into something more, something that would change the course of galactic history. And it had all begun because a marine biologist from Korea decided to run toward the fire instead of away from it. Some humans, it turned out, were monsters, but some humans were something else entirely. Some humans were hope,